Well, hi, I'm Pastor Kari, and I'm here with my friend Joe Davis, an artist and poet and educator located in the cities, the Twin Cities.
Yeah, both of them. Mostly Minneapolis, but I cross the bridge all the time. So, yeah. I live here in North Minneapolis. I do spoken word poetry, music, theater, dance, and I used to, before COVID, I used to travel across the country and go to, different churches and schools, and that's actually how we met a few years ago. So yeah, we stayed in contact, and then
Yeah, we met at a youth retreat at Fortune Lake up in Crystal Falls, Fortune Lake Lutheran Camp. And then ever since I met him there, I wanted to bring him to our congregation here at Trinity in Rhinelander. And so we did this past February, which, well, that was a good thing we did, because soon after we
I wouldn't have been able to happen.
No.
Unless we did the food. Yeah.
So we've stayed in contact over the years, and I appreciate the freedom that we have to talk to one another, and our relationship. So what we want to do today is sort of have an open conversation about race relations. I don't know if that's right.
And faith and building bridges.
Well, I did want to, so I had this experience in college. I was probably about 19. I was involved in student activities, and there were two Black women who were also involved in student activities, and we were in this office together, and the two of them had never really spoken together. One of them had been adopted by white parents and raised in basically a white community, and so she joined a white sorority. So she was the only African-American student in this white sorority. Not that they call themselves a white sorority, it just happens to be. And then there was this other woman who was in a Black sorority, and it was not that big a campus. I went to Sonoma State University in Northern California, and there wasn't a large African American population, but like we had a Black student union, and they were organized and had dances and events and stuff. So these two women were talking together for the first time. And basically the conversation was about, the one woman, she's like, well, I'm in a white sorority because I don't feel accepted by the Black community. And the woman in the Black sorority was basically saying, that's why you should be in the Black sorority, so that you can learn about your culture and see what you've missed out on because you've been so immersed in this white world, sort of. Well, anyway, one of the things that the Black sorority had was, the woman said, Rosa Parks is in our sorority. Like, this is the best sorority ever, and here's the reason why. And I'm sitting there listening. Like, I get that this is a significant conversation that they're having, and I'm sort of absorbing it. But then I was so confused. Rosa Parks is in your sorority, so Rosa Parks is a student here, because don't you have to be a student to be in a sorority? So without much editing, I say, who is Rosa Parks? And it's like crickets in the room. And this older, sort of large white woman who was also in the room, she was like a 40-year-old student. She like gets real big, points her finger at me, and is like, stupid white girl, get out. Yeah. And like, she's got kind of scary there. And I held my emotions together long enough to get out and find the nearest bathroom, and I bawled in a stall because I was mortified. And then the woman from the Black sorority came into the bathroom and like helped me recover, and I went back in and whatever. But I think the thing about that is, I think it created this like fear, like, what if I say something stupid again, which I'm capable of, and what if it's really offensive? So how do I engage in a conversation when I might reveal my lack of knowledge or my lack of sensitivity? That's my story.
Yeah. I think that's such a great story to share, because I feel so many people can resonate with that vulnerable honesty of like being afraid of saying and doing the wrong thing when it comes to these relationships, when it comes to these conversations. And the truth is that I always like to tell people is like, you're gonna mess up. Like, you're gonna say something stupid. Like, you probably already have. And the chances are really, really, really high that you're going to do it again. And so just getting that out of the way as soon as possible, that those types of mistakes are unavoidable. And still, we should still be present to this work, right? Like it can lead towards like a deeper sense of understanding and a deeper sense of self and a deeper relationship of healing. When we stay present to it, even if we're going to be awkward and uncomfortable and fumbling through it, because that's the nature of relationships. Relationships are messy, right?
Yeah.
You think about any relationship that you've ever been in, it's inevitable that there's gonna be some mistakes. You're gonna say and do something.
Sure.
About like when you're on your first date, if you can remember, like think back before you were married and how you're
What
like.
are you saying? That was a long time ago?
What? Oh, I don't know how long you've been married. I'm about to celebrate my 2-year anniversary.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we've been together for 7 years. But like, that first date, you're like trying to hide all of the dirt underneath the carpet and trying to hold your farts in or whatever. Like, like
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, you want to say and do everything right because you care about that other person. You care about what they think about you. You want everything to be beautiful and perfect. And that's with like these relationships. And yet we also have like other dynamics. We have like a history of racism and sexism, and like in our particular context in the United States, our history is fraught with those things, and they still impact us to this day. So you layer that on top of the social anxiety, and then you get racial anxiety, right? And that's a real thing that we have to figure out how to navigate. So.
Need to get over my own hesitations and risk saying stupid things. By the way, I do know who Rosa Parks is. When I was in Houston, I sat on the bus where she sat, or where they say she sat. I did. Even then, I knew who she was. I just was confused. Like, how is she in your story?
Yeah,
what? So anyway.
Yeah, and then but that was a learning experience, right? And now you have like this deeper insight, and you have a funny story. And like there's more power and beauty and joy that can come from it. I think it does more harm to pretend and to stay quiet and to not say anything or not to do anything. I think that does more harm than to take the risk of stepping out, speaking out. I think that ultimately, even though there will be those moments of like discomfort, I think ultimately it leads to a lot of healing and a lot of joy. We just have to be willing to put ourselves out there.
I want to take a look at, so thinking about taking time to sort of get to know people. I think that's sort of at the heart of this movement that we're in right now, is it's like maybe my experience isn't the only truth that's out there. My experience is valid, but it's not the only one. So how do I hear the experience of others? And I think the encouragement is to have fumbly conversations. And I want to look at in John chapter 4, when Jesus, he's sitting at the well already, and a woman comes to draw water, and he says, "Give me a drink." And it's super weird because it's the middle of the afternoon. Most people got it in the morning. I mean, there's all these weird, unusual things happening in this story. And she's a Samaritan woman, so for a Jewish man, a Jewish teacher, to talk to her is unusual from the start. And then he says to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I will give will become in them a spring of water gushing to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." I think there's a lot happening in this story.
Yeah, I just think about all those particularities that Jesus is like speaking directly to. Like in that story, this woman he's talking to, the Samaritan woman, right? In that day and age, in that particular context, Samaritans were like the social pariah in relationship to the Jews, right? And so there's that dynamic there. And then there's like the gender dynamic, like a Jewish man speaking to a woman. A lot of folks would be like, no, 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 you're not supposed to be crossing that line. And he did that.
I think they did.
Yeah. And so, but Jesus didn't shy away from that conversation. He spoke directly to those particularities. He did it for the sake of healing and for the sake of like transformation and liberation. And so that healing water, right, that living water that he's speaking of, I think that's what we're trying to get after. That's what we have to bring to all of these conversations, to all of these relationships, is how do we bring that healing water?
Well, I think about, that living water, that he's part of what's happening in them even having a conversation is him offering her living water, like taking the time to get to hear her story, because she goes on to say more after. She allows herself to be pretty vulnerable, and he offers her this gift of acceptance and grace and relationship. And I wonder how that speaks to our role as Christians, as humans in the world. When we walk around, how can we offer living water to people around us?
Yeah. How can we listen long enough to hear the humanity in the other, right? People who culture and society teach us that we're supposed to be distant from, that we're supposed to be afraid of, those people who are a threat to us. But if we sit and listen in the same grace and compassion that Jesus offered that woman, then we can listen long enough to hear the humanity. And I think a lot of healing and transformation can come from that, for sure.
Yeah, and she runs off. She's like, he told me everything about myself. Well,
right?
Maybe he told her everything about himself because she sat there with him, and they got to know one another. There's something powerful about hearing somebody else's story and then accepting them. And them accepting you. I mean, you're already in sort of a sacred space when someone's willing to share with you. Like, that's sort of holy ground right there.
Yeah. I've heard that listening, right, is like being truly listened to and being truly heard is almost the same thing as being loved, right? If you have I'm sure you can imagine conversations you've had with people where it feels like you're just hitting the wall, like nothing you're saying is being received. Like all they want to do is say what's in their head and they want to get it out, right? But they're not actually holding what you're saying or what you're speaking. And so when you're in a conversation and what you're saying, they can even say it back to you and say, oh, well, this is what I heard you say. And like, it just resonates. And that is one of the most affirming and validating and humanizing experiences when you have a conversation and someone really has that deep, holy listening, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like being loved. Yeah.
So there's power in like, how are you? I'm struggling. Well, I want to hear about that. I care about you. And so I think when we're talking about this tension in the movement that we're in around Black Lives Matter, and I think there's power in hearing and acknowledging the story of somebody else. And it's like, how hard is that for me to do?
Yeah, and I think it takes practice. Like that's like the biggest thing for me is like, it's not so much that we're not good at holding these spaces. It's not so much that we're not good at having these conversations. It's that we're unpracticed, right? Like I think if people try to look back and think about how many times have they actually had a conversation around race where there's that shared vulnerability and that deep holy listening, and maybe there wasn't that many. And that I think that's indicative of there just hasn't been the practice. And so like you and I holding this space, having this conversation, this is an act of practicing. This is us like just getting our reps in. Like, and the more you get your reps in, the stronger you get, that you build your capacity to do it even more. And I think that's a big thing that I really want people to remember is like, we have to keep practicing, right? You can't get good at anything without practicing. And so we have yet to practice in so many contexts. So
like, I wanted my encounters with people to be right, not necessarily authentic. Like, how can I say all the right things so I don't sound like a racist or sound stupid or sound whatever? Meanwhile, I'm so guarded that I'm not really with this other person.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's true.
Yeah. That's real. Yeah, I only think I don't even necessarily look at it. So sometimes there is like people are right and wrong, but oftentimes I look at it as people who are unpracticed and people who are practiced. And we all need practice. We all need more practice. Even if there are people who have been having these conversations and been in these spaces, you never arrive, right? It's about the journey, not the destination. And until everybody is experiencing like the flourishing of humanity that Christ calls us into, that beloved community. So that happens, we still got to keep practicing, right? And so, but whenever I bump up against like some wounding within myself or within another person, and there's that space where it doesn't feel like we're connecting, I just look at it and say, there's not practice there. There's more conversations that need to be had. There's more relationship that needs to be deepened. There's more work that needs to be done.
I love that, because I think that's the fun part about being a human. Is it's like when I think about being a person of faith, I've sort of been accused as a pastor of like arrived. Like we're all learning and growing, and that's the fun. Like that's the fun. And I think when we can put ourselves in a position to be vulnerable and be the learner, that's when we're going to be stretched and challenged and become more human, and also in that more who we were created to be.
Yes, that's what it is. That's the call that Christ calls us deeper into, is to be more fully human, more fully who we were created and called to be. I love this quote by Howard Thurman, who was the mentor and teacher of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come fully alive, because what the world needs are more people who are truly alive, who are fully alive. And I think that's a lot of what this work is about, is creating a world in which we can all be fully alive, all be who God created us to be, all humanity can flourish. And when we're not engaged in those conversations, those relationships, and we're just denying and dismissing people's stories, dismissing people's humanity, that's not allowing them to be fully alive, but that's also doing damage to our own humanity when we cut short someone else too, because we all do better when we all do better. And so how do we practice being in these spaces together to where we can all fully be alive?
Awesome. Hey, Joe Davis, I want to thank you for joining us here and helping us grow. So I appreciate this time.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for being part of the conversation. Appreciate you.
Let's do this again. How about?
Definitely. Let's make it happen again.
All right.
All right.